You're having fun. Okay, guys. We want to learn how to discipline our children, all right? Yeah, amen. Teach them how to work is very important. All right, we're going back into Ephesians 6:4 and continue to unpack this one verse. So far, we've covered the importance of God's management style and working together as a husband and wife to assure we're representing that authority that God has put in place, which is really a significant aspect of both our sons and daughters understanding the Godhead and how it works and the authority of submitting to God, and also the management style and the protection and many other things, which we didn't really get too much time to dive into. But and also we talked about the loving environment that we need to manage and maintain in our homes. And these things are extremely important and essential for the disciplining or discipling of our children. If the management style is out of order and the loving environment is not there, you can forget about the disciplining. Period. It is significant. You cannot ignore these other things, the management style and or the environment, like I just shared with you toward the end, that if we remove those things, we can be a tool of the enemy to even hinder our children from receiving the seeds of discipline and allowing them to penetrate their hearts and actually begin to grow and germinate. So they are essential. And so we need to keep that in mind. I know when I do discipline, many people say, oh, this is the part I've been waiting for. I want to learn how to spank my kids and love it, you know. And it's not just about that. The other two things are extremely important. So as we go through this verse, again, it says here, and you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training. What God is saying there, I bring you these kids, I give them to you, and they're not mature. Your job is to love them and train them. They come immature. Is anyone here surprised? Good. He says they don't. They're unfinished. Our job is to train them. The word training here, it means to discipline, to correct, to educate, to cause to grow as desired, to make and become prepared and or skilled. That's what this word discipline means. The Vine's Expository Dictionary says it this way: discipline that regulates character and or instills character. This is what discipline does when it's done properly. This is what we need to be doing. It's the means by which we instill the mature characters in our kids, which is another way of putting it, our goal. How important do you think it is for a husband and wife to know and agree what the mature characters that we're aiming for are? I've asked many husbands and wives to tell me what they think it is and write it on a piece of paper. And you know how often it's not unified? And we wonder why the kids are a mess or things are not right at home. When a husband and wife can't agree what the characters are, we're actually trying to instill. Where's the goal? Have you ever ran a race and you didn't know where the finish line was? It's kind of pointless. We need to know the finish line. And God's word is very clear what that is. And he ends that verse in the admonition of the Lord, which means as the Lord instructs, not in our own way, not the way our parent did it, not our culture or our traditions. He says, I want you to discipline and instill the characters that I want you to put into them my way. Here's a sweet thing about what I get to do around the world. No matter where I'm at, China, Russia, Germany, no matter where place God has me, when I get to go bring this material, they all say the same thing. Oh my gosh, this applies to us. It doesn't change with our culture. It doesn't matter what our traditions are. And we need to, as Christians, know that, okay, God, your word is complete, and I need to learn your ways, invest the time to learn, and do it your way, not mine. Hebrews 12, 5 and 6 gives us probably the best couple verses that kind of bring some real clarity to the concept of discipline. So I'm going to read this for you, and we'll pull some information out of this. Hebrews 12, 5 and 6. And have you forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you as his children? He said, my children, don't make light of the Lord's discipline, and don't give up when he corrects you. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his children. This is how the Heavenly Father disciplines us. Again, sadly, many Christians are completely ignorant of what God is saying here. The word discipline or chastening simply means to train, to instill character. And we know that it's a character of a mature adult that our kids come to us without. That's our job, love and train. The word rebuke, or sometimes your Bible will use the word scourge, means punishment. That means a measured amount of pain to motivate. They're two very different words that work in collaboration with the process of discipline. When I ask parents, when your kids do something wrong, what do you do? The first word out of their mouth 99% of the time is, I punish them. Really? So when you punish your children for acting the way they're supposed to, and you punish them, what's the message to your child? You did bad. You're broken. You're wrong. There's something wrong with you. That's the message. We don't realize it. And God made it very clear. Which word came up first? Discipline or scourging? Discipline. He disciplines us. And we need to discipline our children. When your kids make a mistake and prove to you and themselves they're not done yet, God says discipline them. If they say no, now they're asking for the motivator. That is when, I'll say it one more time, that is when they're asking for the scourging, the punishment. We got to take this concept that came from the pit of hell and human carnality, that our children, when they make a mistake, we must punish them. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Thank God he doesn't do that to you and I. He took us the way we are. All the weaknesses and frailties and ignorance and all that carnality that's in us. He said, I love you and I paid for it all, but I don't want you to stay that way. I am going to be disciplining you. I want to sanctify you. I have a purpose in and through your life, and I want you to be joining me in the sanctificational process. And you and I are on that process until you and I die. That's what his word tells us. Our children are no different. God says, look to me how I'm disciplining you and follow my methodology as the admonition of the Lord. Do it my way. Implement my methodology into your disciplining process. And God said that he does it because he says it's an aspect of love. So when we're angry and upset and yelling and raising our voice or inconsistent, what are we telling our kids? I don't love you. Oh, they don't take it that way. God created the soul. And that's the way they take it, no matter what you lie that you believe. Why we need to see discipline and even scourging as love, and make sure that when we are delivering it, when we're implementing it, we're doing it in love, because it is love. And when you have the temptation not to follow through and to let your kids manipulate you and let your emotions and feelings and situation to dictate when and if you follow through, that is also hate. God is consistent. We need to see discipline and scourging as showing our children we love them. I used to go to the juvenile hall, not because I deserved to go there when I was younger, but I worked with at-risk kids. And they used to let me go into Unit 1000 and 1400, which were the murderers. And it was a real blessing to learn that I was the only one back in, it was 96, 97. I was going into there, and the warden, lack of a better word, was allowing me to go in there and talk to these kids. And I was the only one I found out that they allowed to come in and bring them all out at once. And I learned that after the third time I was there. Blew my mind. Because what did I know? And the warden heard me speak someplace and came up to me and said, "Here's my card. I really know you. I'm so-and-so at Juvenile Hall. I'd love to have you come down and talk to the kids." All right, cool. And when I went down there, they had like 5 security guys and whatever, and they gave me a little deal, and they brought these guys up, and here they come marching out individually out of their individual rooms and sat down around me, and boy, these were angry, hurting little boys. And I'm sitting there going, God, what am I going to say to these kids? And right before they came out, the guy came up to me and goes, these are all the murderers. These are the ones who are in there are lifers. They're going to go right from here to the big big house. They're not coming out. So what are you going to say to them? I don't know right now. I have no idea. But I just talked about the character of the mature adult and how one retains it. And to see these young, hardened kids with tattoos up their neck and gangbangers holding back tears was amazing. These kids never heard anything about the Bible, never stepped foot in the church, and they knew that when I was speaking about the character of a mature adult and the involvement of a proper loving parent, how it was to give it to them, they knew in their soul what I was saying. This is right. And they raise their hand and goes, "Yeah, my parents, I know they didn't love me, and they never disciplined me." And then they start sharing and opening up. And boy, they did not want to cry in front of one another. But I had to encourage them. You have to make a choice. Are you going to let the sins of them and the weakness of them continue to keep you here? Or are you going to work toward trusting God? Now, I couldn't give a salvation message. They told me that. But I said, you can trust God. I'm a pastor. What I'm sharing with you comes right out of the Bible. You can trust God and say, I'm going to forgive my parents. And God, I want to attain this character. And you can do that by submitting to the authority that's here. And you can work toward applying these things. God wrote these things in the soul of our sons and daughters. They know that proper love and real love is setting boundaries and disciplining and motivating them if they do not yield. They know it. It's written in our heart, our soul. Our Creator put it there. And we need to know, okay, God, how and why we are to do this. Proverbs 22:15 says, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. Foolishness means this: deficient in understanding, unwise, brainless, irrational, ludicrous, and a lack of judgment. Does that explain your kids? Sure it does. God says, look it's bound up in them. It's in them. Don't act surprised when you see it. I gave them to you that way. Your job is to love and change that, to instill maturity into them. Again, why do we get angry? It's the pit of hell. John, you have one son, right? And his name is? Blake. Were you there when Blake was born? Were you inside, watching inside? How many of us needed therapy after that? There was nothing like the movies they put us through, right? They didn't prepare me for that. I was like, oh my gosh, Lord. But anyway, that's another whole story. If you were there when Blake was born, and Jesus walked in the room, and he took Blake in his arms, and he walked him over to you and says, John, I want you to do two things with this boy. I want you to love him, and I want you to get him to bench press 200 pounds. He did. And was he a big boy? He did. Okay. So I want you to begin the bench. When he hits 200 pounds, your training's done. That's what he tells you. Would you know what to do?
I need help.
Okay. So, if you're a bench presser, if you worked out at all, you don't work out with your legs when you need to bench press 200 pounds. You get smaller weights, and you lay down on the bench and you do this, right? And do you start off with 200 pounds with your boy? No, you start off with like a pound or something, whatever. And when his character and cognitive skills get to a certain point, 2, 3 years old, you say, what's his name? Blake. I'm sorry, I was going to say, Blake, I want you to lay down this bench, and I want you to do this 5 times. Now, do you think he understands what's being developed? No idea of his chest muscles, his arm. He has no idea. Do you think he enjoys it? He might for a little bit, then, I don't want to do this. He don't like it. He's 3, he's 4. He has no concept of the goal. He has no concept of what's taking place inside him. He doesn't know what God told you. He just knows this sucketh. I'd rather be playing. I'd rather be doing anything else but this disciplining my muscles. But you know that if you continuously do it as he gets older, you're moving this close toward the goal of what God told you. And I give you that illustration for a reason. Muscles developing character is very similar to muscles. Now, if you came home and Blake was 12 and 13, now he understands very clearly that when he bench presses 200 pounds, you're done with the discipline. He knows that now. He understands where we're going and why. So he gets 2 of his buddies to say, you know what, I'm done with that being my authority and disciplining me. I'm sick and tired of this, doing this 3 days a week. And he convinces his friends to dump 200 pounds on his chest. And you walk in the door, and that 200 pounds is on him, and it's doing what? Crushing his chest. He's, do you walk in there, you little idiot? What's wrong with you? Push that thing off to your chest. What's wrong with you? At your age, I was doing twice as much. Do you do that? No. Then that would be El Stupido, right? That would be wrong. But when we get angry with our sons and daughters, that's exactly what we're saying to them. Every time they manifest to you and themselves that they're not done yet, and we get angry, we are sending that kind of message to them. Every single time. I don't like you. There's something wrong with you. And you should be further along than you are. Now, what can Satan do with that when they become adolescents? Oh, does he know how to capitalize on that? But when you go in there and say, no, son, oh man, and you grab that and you pull it off and you put it up and say, son, man, I don't expect you to do 200 pounds yet. But look how far you've come. Man, I started off, we were with half pounders. Now you're working out with 40s. Son, I remember you couldn't do 40 for nothing. But I'll tell you, we're going to get there. You become a good encourager. Son, we're going to get there. I'm telling you, you're going to be bench pressing 200 pounds. But it's a process. You'd be as encouraged. You wouldn't be meeting with anger and getting frustrated with saying, what the heck's wrong with you? That's the attitude that God says we must have as parents with our children. We have to understand what is the goal. No, it's not bench pressing 200 pounds, but I'm going to define for you today what are the characters we need to instill. And so when you see it the characters not being done, you're going to know, well, of course, you can't do it yet because you're not done. And you just proved to me and you that you're not done yet. So I must find a way and know how to discipline at that moment. You just gave me an opportunity to discipline. And why it's so important for your kids to understand what the goal is and why discipline is supposed to be part of it and why scourging is part of it. When I ask teenagers, what are your definition of mature adult? They have no concept. What's your parents' involvement to help you get there? They go, I don't know. They got to feed me, I guess. And, kind of set some rules. They have no idea how it works. None. Which is exactly Satan's plan. We got to make sure our kids not only know what the character of the mature adult is, but here's the process, and here's what God's asked us to do. And I will follow through because I need to be obedient to Christ. And here's the plan, here's how it works, and here's how it's going to affect you when you yield. When you don't, I'm going to scourge you. And here's how we're going to do it. We don't want to, but it's up to you. You get to choose. Failure and disobedience is not defiance and rebellion. You got to fix that in your mindset. Defiancy and rebellion, again, is when you say to Blake, hey, son, you just blew it. Trash is supposed to be out. It's Wednesday. It's supposed to be out by 5 o'clock. It's 5:10. And that Nintendo game you're playing, hope it was worth it. Now you get to go take the trash out now and go wash 3 windows. Now, when he's washing those windows, what's Blake going to be thinking about? Yeah. Is that Blake's going to be going, if I would have taken the trash out, if I would have thought to take the trash out by 5, because that's when the rule was, if I did it on 5, I wouldn't be washing these windows. How many times would he wash windows before he finally gets it in his head? It's good to learn how to problem solve and think for myself and be responsible. You don't go, did you mean to? Did you mean to forget? Because if you meant to forget, I'm going to make you do 10 windows. What's that? That's ugly, gross evil that sometimes parents play. That's when a kid says no and Blake says, no, I'm not doing the windows. Now he's saying, I don't accept God's authority. I don't accept you as my authority. I refuse to be disciplined. So you're going to say, well, guess what, Blake? At 15 years old, your life just stopped. No phone, no TV, no friends, no nothing, man. It's schoolwork, and chores, and that's it. And you'll stay in that place until you go do the discipline. That's the punishment for a typical 15-year-old who thinks he or she does not need to leave authority. Now, I don't care. I'll stay in my room. All right, you're 15. I got 4 more years. I'll wait you out. When they come, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. That's what I think, too. You would have washed those 3 windows. You would have been done in 15 minutes. But, hey, you want to stay in your room for 3 days or 3 hours? It's up to you. They will understand that very simply. I didn't come up with this, son. The Lord did. I have to discipline you. And if you say no to the discipline, I got to find a way to motivate you, which is a measured amount of pain to motivate you to yield to authority and receiving discipline. That's what God said I must do. You get to choose if you're going to do the discipline or do the discipline and get punishment. Because punishment doesn't replace discipline. They need to come out and finish it before the punishment's over. And correctly. Do our kids need to learn how to work? Do they know how to learn how to do it efficiently? Do they need to learn how to do it right? Yes, they do. So let's define the characters. 3 characters your kids were born without. When is I supposed to be done? I want to make sure I pace this right.
Getting hungry too.
1?
No, I'm sorry. 11:30.
11:30. Oh, gosh. 12?